Hi, everyone. I've been getting a ton of emails lately from students, and I felt like it was important for me to give you a mini lesson on email etiquette, just because these messages from students, these emails from students, just weren't in the proper format, and definitely were not professional. So I'm going to go through today a little bit about what email is, what it should look like, as well as some good and bad examples that I've actually received from students before. And at the end of today's lesson, you're going to be doing an email activity for me where you're actually going to send me a professionally written email for a grade. So first off, I think it's important to understand that email is formal professional communication that we would use. And when you are text messaging, like on your phone, that is informal communication. Now, you can email from your phone, but still your emails should be in a formal letter type format, okay? Both of these are written communication, right? But text messaging from your phone lacks that proper format. And oftentimes we don't use the same grammar we would in an email that we do in text messaging. So to start off, we need to think about to who we're going to be sending the email. So this is the person that the email directly affects, right? So we would write or type the recipient's email into the to field from our email box. For example, send to Mrs. Smith because you're thanking her for being a great teacher. Another feature of email that you can sometimes use is called carbon copy. What this means is you send a copy of the email to somebody else. This would notify the recipient of the original email of the content, but does not require any action. So for example, you wanted to send your teacher an email thanking them for the great job that they did, but you also wanted to carbon copy our principal at Case High School. The last thing you can do is a blind carbon copy. This is kind of like sending a secret email. You would send a copy of the email to another recipient without indicating the original recipient. This would notify the recipient of the content, but does not require any action. It requires confidentiality. So for example, privately copying your mom on that email to your teacher so she can read it and know no one knows you sent it to her. Next, it's important that you have a proper subject for your email. So you're going to write a subject that is direct. So for example, if you wanted to thank your teacher for doing a great job, you might write thank you as a subject for your email. Next, much like a letter, you want to have a salutation. What this is a formal greeting, such as dear or hello or good afternoon. It kind of starts off your email in a positive way. So you would use the recipient's name in your greeting. For formal salutations, write the recipient's title and last name. So for example, Mr. Wurzenloft. Use the proper title and spelling. Research to make sure you're spelling the title correctly. Like Mr. Wurzenloft is very long, so look up how to spell my last name correct. So for example, dear Mrs. Smith, comma. That's how you would do your salutation. So something that my students mess up a lot with is understanding block paragraph format. What I mean by this is it's not like a report you write in school where you would indent every paragraph. What this means is all of your paragraphs within your email or with all of your different spaces within your email are all going to be all lined up at the left. So you're going to use block paragraphs with one space. So that means hitting the enter button one time between the salutations, the paragraph, and the closing. I'm only going to see one blank line in between your paragraphs. Of course, using standard English that's grammatically and mechanically correct. Using good academic word choice in your professional emails, right? We don't typically use emojis or smiley faces or abbreviated words or slang in our email, okay? And then we also want to avoid overusing exclamation points. What I mean by this is typing exclamation point 5 times after a sentence. So your email should end with a closing, something like sincerely, respectfully, kind regards, best wishes, best regards, best, whatever you would like to use. Kind of think like you're writing a letter, okay? And your closing is always followed by a comma. I'll show you some examples in a little bit. So your email should end with a sign off. Kind of like if you were writing a letter, you would sign your name at the bottom of the letter. So in this case, you would write your first and last name to sign off. And if you have a title, such as you're the president of an organization, or you have a degree of sorts, you could also write that underneath your sign off. So if I was the vice president of an organization, I might write in my sign off Keith Wurtenloft, and then underneath that vice president. I just put these things in here as some other things to consider when you're thinking about email. So recently I've been getting a ton of reply all. So let's say, for example, someone is sending an email to multiple people requesting them to answer a question or to respond back to the original person who sent the email. And everybody has been using the reply all feature. So all of these people are letting everybody know their answer that the original email writer was asking, when that might not always be necessary, right? You always want to proofread before you send your email. How embarrassing is it to have spelling mistakes in your email when you're trying to write to your teachers, trying to write to community members? It just makes you look really unprofessional. If you ever get interrupted within your email, you can go ahead and save that as a draft and come back to it later, okay? And then on a second or third exchange, you may not need to include a salutation or a closing. What I mean by this is, if someone sends you an email and you're emailing back and forth, you don't always have to say sincerely at the end of your email, because you've been having communication back and forth for a good amount of time, right? We get who you are. Now, for some really bad emails that I actually received from students. So check out this email, and of course I blocked out who it's from. Hey, I finished all my missing work. Can you grade right away, please? And thank you. I turn it in, all of them, on Google Classroom. This is a person, by the way. We all know that that is not how you would send an email. There's no subject up here. There's no salutation. Look at all the grammar mistakes in here, right? I wouldn't even know who sent this email if I didn't have this box right here that said the person's name, right? They didn't even put their name at the bottom. Can you send me the job application? Think if your teacher got that message, right? No subject, can't capital letter, didn't address me. Check out this one. Tomorrow, is it okay that I take a test, fourth block for chemistry? Again, no subject, didn't address me, didn't say who you are. Now this next one did have a subject. What did we do first hour in class today, 1B? While I'm glad that this student put a subject up in here, right? I think it might be a little bit too long to be a subject. Something that could have been better was absent from class today, 1B. Might be a better subject. But check out the body of the email. Look at all of these, didn't capitalize the I, no punctuation, right? No salutation or closing. Now this one has a really good subject, ethics cases. So when I see this come up in my email, I know right away what this message is going to sort of be about, right? Are you sure I didn't turn in the ethics cases because I swear I turned them all in? I don't know what class this student is in. I don't know who this student is, right? They didn't address me. Is this email supposed to go to me? Think about those kinds of things when you're emailing your teacher. So here's another email, has a good subject. Clearly the student needs help, but then they write, I didn't get the homework questions. Well, I feel kind of bad because teachers typically have over 100 students and we're constantly giving out work, right? So what homework questions is the student talking about? What day did they not get the homework questions, right? Who is the student? So remember thinking about that. Teachers, are going through this too, right? So this one has a really good subject. English homework due 9/12, right? I clearly know exactly what this student is talking about. But then they start using some abbreviations. Now, I know I'm older than you, right? I'm 30 years old. I know what GM means, right? But not all teachers might know what that is. So it's best to spell out your salutation. GM, IDK how to do part one. See, I knew that was part PT of the HW, which I'm assuming is homework. Was it in the text, which I'm assuming is textbooks? Thanks with an X, TTYL, Melissa. This is probably something you would text somebody on your cell phone versus send in an email, right? Think about doing professional communication with your teachers. Now here is a good example of an email. Clearly I know this student is talking about DECA, so DECA State 4B is the subject of this email. They greeted me with hello, right? Put my name on there, Mr. W. This is, and they said their name right away in the email, so I know exactly who sent this, is in your 4B class. I want to let you know that I could not find you at school today and left all the forms in your mailbox. There are two things that are not filled out that I thought you had to go over. Thank you, comma, and they signed their name. This is a great email from a student. So because of previous conversations with this student, I knew that TA meant teacher's assistant. So that was an appropriate subject for this email. So again, they greeted me, hi, Mr. W, comma. I was wondering if you would want a TA for the first block on A days. I have an open block in my schedule and thought it would be good to TA for a business class. So they did have a spelling mistake in there, right? They should have went back and checked that. Thank you, and then they sign their name, okay? So other than the spelling mistake, I think they did a good job on this email, right? Remember to proofread before you send an email to anybody. How embarrassing is that? Now I'm showing this email to all of my future students, right? All right, here's another good email. Subject, request for homework help with 910 homework. Good afternoon, Mrs. Teacher. I hope you are well. I read the article that we were supposed to refer to for the homework questions, but I still can't quite understand questions 2 and 4. Could you please kindly explain what you mean by underlying connotation? Thanks for your help, Melissa. Great email. Now this is the teacher responding back to the student. Look how the teacher formats the email. Dear Melissa, you have received a 66% on your second marking period exam grade. I requested that you turn in all parts of the exam on time, and you did not. Also, your answers are rushed, and you left class early on the day of the exam. I am disappointed. Please see me at the end of class. Regards, Mr. Teacher. Now, something else we didn't bring up, but I want you to think about is when you're mad about something, it might not be the best time to send an email. What I always say as a rule is to wait 24 hours. So you get an email or something you're really mad about and you start to type an email and it's all full of emotion, right? Well, that's going on in this email right here. Second marking period exam grade. Mr. Teacher, you can't do that. You can't just take off points for stupid reasons. You can't take points off because I left class early. Cameron did less than me and you gave him an 87%. You can't play favorites. I'm taking this to the principal, right? So I'm not saying that this student shouldn't be justified in feeling like they deserve higher points, but I'm saying maybe it would have been better to have a personal conversation with this teacher and not putting so much emotion into their email. This might be a better way that Melissa could have responded to the situation. Mr. Teacher, I am too disappointed to find that I scored so low on the exam. I owe you an explanation, although it is a belated one. And I sincerely hope that we may be able to discuss this further tomorrow after class. At the time of the exam, I was undergoing an arm surgery, which required that I remain under the close supervision of my doctor during the recovery. That is why I had to leave the exam early. My doctor could accommodate me only at that time. I really hope that you may consider making an exemption and allow me to recover the late points in the light of this circumstance. I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow. Best, Melissa. Okay, so here's your assignment for today. I want you to write me an email using all of the things that we discussed today, all the good things that we learned about how to be professional, how to send an email correctly, right? Having a subject, having a salutation with a comma, having your body paragraphs all be left justified, right? All lining up at the left with no indents, one blank line in between your paragraphs, having your closing at the end, right? I want you to make sure you do all of those things and you're gonna send me an email. Your email can be about something you're doing this weekend, something that you're looking forward to, a question that you might have. The content of your email doesn't matter as much as long as it's grammatically correct, you have all the correct capitalizations and spellings. But I just want you to send me an email. So your email and all future communication with your teachers must be in the following format. So again, a subject line, a greeting, identifying yourself in the body of the email. So saying maybe who you are and what period I might have you or a teacher might have you. Using appropriate grammar and language, a closing, and your sign off, right? So this is my email address, and I'll make sure that's in Google Classroom for you as well too. So I want you to send an email to me right now. That's your assignment. Compose a professionally written email, and I'm going to respond to everybody before I see you next class period next week. And I will make sure I respond to everybody. And I'll respond if you didn't write your email correctly, right? So make sure you proofread before you hit send. If you have any questions, right, that could be your email to me. But definitely ask since I'm not here today.